excited about our topic today because we're going to be talking about shine from the inside out and call in your man. So before we jump into that, Nicole, I wonder if you could just share a little bit more about yourself personally, your own journey, and how you came to do this amazing work you now do in the world.
Thank you so much, Michelle. So I would love to share a little bit about how I started. For more than 10 years, I was single. No man ever showed interest in me. And everybody would say, like, how come, Nicole, like that you're single? It doesn't really like make any sense. What's going on there? And I would feel like, a little bit uncomfortable whenever people would make comments like that. And I just really had to reconnect with my vision that I knew that I was in the way of really calling in my man. I knew that I had behaviors, I had, tendencies that would block him away due to fears that I saw in my childhood, right? So I just really had to make a promise to myself that I really wouldn't go back to what I saw, like my parents live, honestly. Like I was like, I am going to create a really beautiful family. I am going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to heal. I'm going to really see within like what's going on there. And I'm going to step up. So as soon as I started to do this work, immediately, men started like showing up, taking me out on dates. I just really started to reconnect with my why. And I could really see how a lot of the times, I know that a lot of women here like feel that way, like, hey, like my love life is outside of my control. And I just want you to know that it's not. You just have to really go with it and see what beliefs you have about love, man, yourself, and really just commit to owning a different story. And that's when your story like really starts to change.
Yeah, I love that you reminded us of that, Nicole, because I do think sometimes we can start to feel like the love life piece is outside of our control and that we have no say over what happens there, that it's all just kind of if the stars are going to align in our favor. And so I love that empowering reminder that you just shared with us.
Yeah.
So as far as this topic of shining from the inside out, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about why you chose that topic. And then maybe you can share with us a few things that prevent a woman from shining from the inside out. And then we'll talk about how you can shine from the inside out.
Yeah, thank you. So it's interesting. I really wanted to call it Shine It from the Inside Out, just because when I first started learning about feminine energy, or the first view that I had around feminine energy was like, you just take care of your skin, you take care of your body, like you wear like bright clothes and all these different things. And for me growing up, I saw it as superficial. I was really my masculine, right? I did not really understand like the power, the presence, the grace of feminine, energy. So I call it shining from the inside out because there's a set of embodiment pieces of how you carry yourself, of how you see yourself that really allow you to shine from a really like whole and healthy place, so that you're not really going outside of you to get something. It's just that you're shining because you take such good care of yourself, right? You see yourself as your number one priority. And when you embody that for yourself, the world reflects that outside. So some of the ways that I really see that women might prevent themselves from really shining is, number one, perfectionism. I always say that perfectionism it's just sometimes a way of proving your worth. So one thing that I tell my clients all the time is like, how much fun life would be if you just simply stop trying to prove your worth. Like if you were just like walking through life, just making decisions because it felt really good to you, you wanted to expand, you were curious about something, instead of saying, no, I have to be better before I receive love. I have to be better before my man comes in. And I see that conversation sometimes really happens inside of the self-development world, where a lot of women are like, I need to do like this work. I need to do this tapping sequence. I need to do this. I need to read this book before I can find him. And it just shows up in so many like different subtle ways in our lives. And we just really have to be honest with ourselves. It's like, yeah, you can really do all this work. You can just sit down, read like this book, do this tapping sequence and also allow yourself to receive in that moment. You got to really know that you're good enough, right? That you're like, maybe your wounds, all the things that you have to heal, you can always, like, there's always a time and space for it. Yes, you're going to be consistent about it, but I just don't want you to like block yourself from receiving, saying that you have to be better before you can really call him in, or you get to experience like life in a better, like a bolder way. So if you're in always that space of like, perfectionism, that really impacts your capacity to shine, because you're always thinking about what others are thinking of you, like the man, or like, what is perfectionism and what do you consider perfect? Is it under your standards or is it under other people's standards? So you really have to just reconnect from within and allow yourself to say, hey, I'm good enough. I am amazing. And I can go through this journey and enjoy myself, along the way. The other piece around it is that I find that a lot of times another way women stop themselves from shining is, that fear of getting hurt, right? It's like, I got to really dim my light because I can get hurt, or this man can hurt me. And like, I just really want to like walk around eggshells, like in terms of my desire, and not really owning it and allowing myself to really be in that space. And the last piece of that is also what I call like excessive giving, like where you're constantly giving to others, to everyone. I remember back in the day, Michelle, there was a moment in my life where, I would try to do like a yoga sequence, right? And then I would hear my phone ring and I'll be like, I have to really go and see like who's calling me. Like I really need to check this or the other. And I was just giving. And when your vessel is empty, right, it's impossible to really shine. Like it's impossible for the universe to really allow you to call in your man if you put yourself last. So it's really important to learn how to receive, right? And, give from a joyful place when you're already feeling full on the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges for many women. I think as women as a whole, I'm speaking in general terms here, of course, we have a tendency to be very giving, to take care of everybody else. And sometimes we do that at the expense of taking care of ourselves. And then over a period of time, that depletes our natural feminine energy. And then we find ourselves without anything to give, right? We find ourselves exhausted, worn out, depleted, and that natural feminine grace and energy that we have is gone, at least for a period of time. So we have to find these ways to fill our cups. And then add on top of that what you also spoke about, and I'll have you talk a little bit more about this, that element of perfectionism, where on top of already depleting ourselves, then we have this voice, this critical voice in our mind, beating ourselves up and telling us we're not enough this, we're not enough that, we're not good enough, and demanding perfectionism of ourselves. It's no wonder that we oftentimes find ourselves just feeling completely wiped out and without that natural feminine energy, right?
Definitely. And I find also, Michelle, that when I was talking about giving, a lot of the time, a key thing that I've really noticed is that I ask my clients sometimes, like, do you have a tendency to want to save people, right? You have to really know why you give, because you're in a constant state of saving. And at the end of the day, I ask them, like, has it ever worked, right? Like, everybody is responsible of saving themselves. So as soon as you're clear that I save myself, because the other piece around that is like when you're always constantly trying to like save someone, then ask yourself, like, and how do I want to be saved? Like, where do I put that? Like, who do I give that responsibility to? And if you notice that you give that responsibility to anyone else, but yourself, like you might add that to your partner or to your kids or, different people, you really have to check in and just own that back, because it never really works. And that's where you really start to have like really wholesome, like healthy relationships where you are really taking care of yourself and you give because you're just flowing that energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And I think if we're in a place where we recognize the importance of receiving, and we allow for that space for receiving, and are even willing to ask for and express our own needs, it's a way that we can fill that cup. And this is not about being needy. There's a huge difference between having needs. All human beings have needs, and being needy. And like you talked about, this savior complex that we can get into as women, where we feel the need to run around trying to save a man we're dating or whatever, it's like trying to save a drowning man. We're going to get pulled underneath with him potentially, and it's going to deplete us of that natural energy. And so I think we have a tendency to be more deeply in touch with the needs of others, and then we suppress, in many cases, our own needs, or we don't express them, or we don't acknowledge their importance. And that's, in my opinion, a form of self-abuse. It's not self-honoring.
It isn't at all.
Yeah. And when it comes to men and dating, we have to create an opening and that space for receiving, meaning that we have to avoid the temptation to rush right in and do the saving, and sometimes have the ability to be in touch with and express our own needs and ask for what we want.
Yeah, I hear you, definitely. It's just, you have to really be connected with yourself, connected with your body, to really know what is your body asking you right now, like what does it need, and learning to give that to yourself first. That way it doesn't feel like, a man might not feel kind of like grabby energy from you. That's what I sometimes explain to my clients, like when you're not really doing something for yourself and then you expect your man to do it for you, and it's just like, well, he's not giving me this, he's not giving me this, and then just ask yourself, like, am I really giving that to myself first and foremost? I feel like that's one of the most important questions that we can ever give to ourselves.
That is a really important question, Nicole, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because I believe we model how we want to be treated. And if we're not modeling how we want to be treated by treating ourselves very well and practicing a very high level of self-care, then it's like we're settling for less than what we really want, and we're sending a message to the universe. Maybe we don't think we're worthy of being treated the way that we most deeply want to, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, so I feel like one of the biggest pieces of this is, where does a woman really start to doubt that a man really wants to give to her, or wants to show up for her? Or, where does a woman start to doubt that she can really attract her man, right? That conversation is really important, and it has to do a lot with self-trust, right? And I firmly know that it has to do with the relationship that you have with yourself. So it's not that you actually had a relationship with a man and he did that and therefore he broke your trust only. Like, it's not just the man who broke your trust. It's not the universe who broke your trust. Like, I feel that a lot of times we project that to other people and other situations. What you really have to look is to the trust that you have with yourself. So, as a woman, you have to know that your primary relationship is always with yourself. So if you break the promises that you make, for yourself, even in terms of self-care or putting other people before you, right? What you're sending out to the message that you're sending out is like, I'm not trustworthy, right? Like, I sometimes it's not even the conversation of is the man going to show up or not. It's a conversation of, okay, am I willing to do all the steps that are required to really manifest him, or to really, be inside of that relationship? Like, we are the ones who stop ourselves. So as soon as you're clear around that, that trust piece that I know a lot of women say, like, I don't know, I don't trust men. Like, I'm really interested, I'm attracted to men, I just don't trust them. And I hear you, right? Like, I know that you've been hurt. I know that you've been cheated on. You've been in different, experiences. What I really want you to see is that you really put that trust in yourself first, and say, like, okay, I'm going to pay closer attention to signs next time, right? Or I'm going to show up a little bit differently, not with a guarded heart, just really trusting my heart that it's going to lead me to the right position. And I'm always going to be in that position of trusting my heart, listening to my heart, listening to my body. What does it tell me? Because when we are only listening to our minds, what happens is that there's a lot of self-sabotage sometimes, a lot of walls that we put up. And what we don't really realize is that we start to create from that space, the space of the wall, the space of I must protect myself. And we always like, whatever you resist persists, right? If your point of focus is in that energy, you're going to attract more cheating men. You're going to attract men who are not right for you. And if you're really, ready for the right guy, you have to open up your heart, right? And say, okay, I am going to trust myself. I'm going to take, all the steps that are required for me to really experience this love because I'm worthy, because I'm worth it, right? And I'm just going to do whatever it takes. That's like the mindset that allows you to really call him in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really, really beautifully said, Nicole. It was really, really, really inspiring. I loved the way that you said that. And I believe that I've always believed that we attract love from the inside out. And I believe that our blocks to love are our internal blocks for the most part. It's easier, I guess, to look outside of ourselves and say, there's no good men in my city, state, country, whatever, or to say that I'm too old or whatever, to blame it on things that we don't have any control over, rather than sometimes to do the deep inner work and introspection that can allow for an opening of a new possibility. And that's why I love that you started with this very empowering idea that we actually do have an opportunity to affect what is going on in our love lives. And the good news is, and that's what you're sharing with us today, it can begin by implementing some of these practices and concepts that are going to make you feel better right away. There's going to be some satisfaction that comes right away in treating yourself better and practicing higher self-care and being kinder to yourself and being able to receive, that is going to allow you to start feeling good and feeling in that more natural feminine energy right out of the gate, even before you might draw in or attract your right man, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And going back to that point around like receiving, you receive because you know that you're worthy of it, right? Like you already give to yourself. So you're in that position of like, of course, the universe wants to, help me call in my man. Of course, my man is going to show up, right? Of course. You're in that energy of course, because you take care of yourself. Like that's a non-negotiable, right? You take care of your needs, your wants, your desires. And if you really, choose to be in that state consistently, right? You really allow to say, of course, because when you break that consistency for yourself, that's when you start trusting, right? I just really want to make sure that, that you really get this message today. Like you have to be consistent with your self-care practice, your self-love practice, with this work, fine-tuning your commitment, noticing where is it that you stop. What is that limiting thought that gets in the way and say, you know what, I have no time for you anymore. This is not going to work. And really dropping in more into your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're going to be giving, if you practice those principles, you're going to be giving off a different vibration, a higher vibration, which is likely to call in a higher quality man. It's amazing how men respond to women that know their own value and know their own worth and are really centered in that. As you were speaking, you made me have this little flashback, Nicole, to a couple of women that I used to know back in my single days. I was active in a church organization, and they had a lot of social events. And these two women, they were sisters, would show up to all of these events, and they were not the most beautiful women physically, but they groomed themselves really well, and they just had this presence about them where in the way they carried themselves and in their level of confidence, they were very natural in their interactions with people in general and with men, and they made them feel really good when they interacted with them because they were just in this really positive, light, happy energy, and men were falling at their feet. And I can remember, Nicole, back then I kept thinking, well, what is it about these women? Because I looked at them and I thought, they're not like drop dead gorgeous. They had a few extra pounds. They dressed really nice. They took care of themselves, groomed really nice. But what it really was is they knew their own intrinsic value as a woman. They were really centered in that. And the way they carried themselves in their presence and their level of confidence and the way they were able to make other people feel comfortable was like a magnet to men. It was amazing.
Yeah. I actually have a fun story that I know that a lot of people are going to love. Like whenever I share it, it's just so specific and so detailed that people are like, wow. So you know that I have an afro, right? Like before I used to have my hair relaxed, it was straight. And it was always because, my family, they meant well. They were like, if you want to have a good job and all these different things, like, you have to have your hair straight, or no man is going to notice you if you have an afro. Like that had to do with their conditioning, right? And at first it was just like, but I really received it for some reason. And I was always in this state of like paranoia, like if a man touched my hair, right? I was just like, what is he going to think of it? Right? So it was just, I had to really reach to a point in my life where I said, I am miserable this way because I was not being authentic. And I was like, I really have to cut it off. And everybody said no. And I was like, yes, because I create my reality. And I guarantee to you that all men are going to be absolutely crazy about my hair as soon as I did it, and I did it. And all of the men love my hair. And it's always the same conversation that I have with my men are like, I just love your hair so much. I love it. And the funny thing is that I might talk to a different woman and that she has an offer as well. And she's like, but she still kept that condition, like that thought. And she has a different experience. Part of it is because she's filtering it through like what other people told her that her life would be like. So you really have to let that go. I remember also that I used to have like issues with my feet. I was like, I don't like my feet. And I was like, I have to really change this. Like I decided to show her my feet with love. I reached to a point where I started to like even kiss my feet and just be like, I love you so much. Before, if I try to touch my feet, I'll be like just a little bit like, oh, wow. And, as soon as I did that practice that week of just like showing my feet with love and attention and being present and just breathing through whatever, uncomfortable energy I had around them, the next week I was on a date with a guy and we were watching a movie and I had my feet like lying on his lap. And he just grabbed my feet and kissed them. And he said, I love your feet. And it was so amazing how that happened because it was only a week in between. And first of all, I would have freaked out. I would have removed my foot right there. But I stayed there. I allowed myself to receive that love and tenderness towards my body. And also, it was just a different energy because before, men would be afraid to touch my hair or touch my feet. They just felt that energy around me, right? Like that tense energy. So what I really want you to say is men will really mirror the way that you treat yourself, the way that you value yourself. They're just going to feel it. They might really not know what it is, but they will feel called to it. So that's why I say it's always about the relationship that you have to yourself. And you have to be in that space of I am worthy. I am amazing, right? And you can just tap into that reality right now. It's just a feeling coming back to your body. You don't have to rationalize it in your mind. It's your mind is not really going to lead you to experience that love, right? You got to drop back to your heart and to your body and say, hey, I am amazing and I choose to love myself and, be in the state of progress. And it's just a process. It's not a destination. So just really allow yourself to know that you are amazing right now, that you get to create your reality. I see it all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are some great examples and some great stories. And, as you were speaking, I was thinking how beautiful it is that you've embraced your beautiful hair. You loved your feet when you didn't love your feet before. And I think it's interesting as women, we tend to be our own worst critics. What do we see when we look in the mirror? We see the wrinkle or we see the pimple or we see the flaws. Or the few extra pounds. We don't tend to see the beauty of ourselves and our bodies and our own magnificence. And then to take it one step further, a lot of times not only are we giving off that negative energy about a part of our body or a part of ourselves, but we're actually even pointing it out to people or to men in particular. And I can tell you, ladies, I've interviewed a lot of men over the years, and they see us as beautiful, but we oftentimes are pointing out our flaws to them. And I've even had men say, you know, I never even noticed this thing that she thought was a flaw till she started pointing it out all of the time. And I just think, again, that's not self-honoring, and it's not in this spirit of you knowing your own intrinsic value. I mean, who cares if you have an ugly toe or whatever, right? It's like, you are amazing and magnificent and beautiful. And beauty is so in the eye of the beholder. And I think your example with your hair in particular is so profound, because your shift about that, your attitude about that, you're holding yourself with pride and with dignity, and being self-honoring about what felt right for you about your appearance, totally transformed your experience in that area, right?
Yeah, you have the power. Like that's just what I say all the time. A lot of times I hear, you know, women tell to me like, you don't understand it, Nicole, this is my situation. Or maybe it's like due to my age and all these different things, like things can't just change. I hear sometimes women say like, I see, why is it that, you know, this work is like almost all the time, like, you know, targeted towards women. I don't see men, you know, doing this work. And it's just like, that's your point of view. Because you and I, Michelle, like we know, like there's a lot of coaches out there helping men do this sort of work. So if you just allow yourself to pull yourself back and be like, hey, there is a different side to this, right? If I choose to see things differently, I will see that reflected outside. So if you're in that energy of like, men are not doing self-development work, or men are not spiritual, like whatever limiting thought or reality you're currently experiencing, if you just allow yourself to be like, okay, no, let's change it, because, you know, I deserve this, right? I matter. My happiness matters. I'm going to choose to see this differently. And then when you hold that frequency for a long period of time, you grow consistent with it, you will see it. Sometimes it doesn't even take a long time. It can be a couple of days, right? It could be in an instant. Just, it's like the universe is waiting for you to change the tune, you know, that you've been singing so far, and say, hey, you know what? Maybe there's a different side to this. I remember that one day I decided to write down all of my beliefs that I had around men, right? Like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right. And I saw it and I was like, okay, it's time to change this. Like I have a lot of negative beliefs around men. And I went for a hike, and I just simply started to really call and reinforce the new affirmations, the ones that I really wanted to see. Men are loving, men are kind, like all these different stories. And I just went for that hike, and that's all I repeated in my mind. Right. And I just felt it in my body. Guess what? That was the experience that I had like the couple of weeks after that. You have the power. Right? And that is what it really means to shine from the inside out. You know that there's space and for everything that you desire. Like the universe is just waiting for you to own it and to own your self-worth, because the only way that you allow yourself to receive it is because you know that you matter, right? You matter, your happiness matters. And when you're in that space, you know that it's available for you. So one of the things that I always say, that I always make this joke with everyone, it's, if you were in a really dire situation and you had no food, access to food, right? And, or like you and your son or your daughter had no access to food. If you had to figure out a way to get food, bread, whatever it is, you wouldn't put that on the shelf and say like, let's see if the universe wants me to have, you know, food, right? You would get up and figure out a way on how to manifest that, right? You know that you had to shift your thought, like, of course there's food for me. I'm going to figure it out. Right? It's the same thing with every other area of your life, including men. Like your love life is not outside of you, right? You just really have to redirect your thoughts and hold that frequency enough, because if you could hold it for your daughter, for other people in your life, your family, you can hold it for yourself. So you really got to notice your gaps. One of the things that my coach taught me was that the way that you do one thing is the way that you do everything. So you just really got to bring that consistency and notice how you prepare your coffee, how you prepare your breakfast. You're going to notice that it's the same thing. So I invite everyone in the audience to just know and look, like, what are your gaps? Like, what are your gaps? How do you show up? And where do you stop yourself from receiving? So one thing that I would normally do is that whenever I was like, I would watch Netflix or a movie or a DVD, whatever the case was, I was always like anxious. I wanted to get to the end, right? I really wanted to get to the end, and I'll be like, okay, so let's fast forward this, let's go over there. And I realized that I was just approaching life at a really superficial level. I was not enjoying the process, and I was not owning my decisions along the way. I just wanted to get to the end, right? So as I was in that energy, I was like, I would attract only men who only wanted like sex, like all these different things, because it was always a match of my superficial energy. I was not planted, rooted in the moment, enjoying every single, like just being present, receptive, because I knew that I mattered and then that I could always enjoy any given moment. So it's just a matter of really learning how to enjoy yourself, grow consistent, know your gaps, and really know that the way that you do one thing is the way that you do everything. So I really invite the ladies here to be present with yourself. Notice where you like zoom out of, let's say, in terms like how I did with my feet, like what part of yourself, like do you avoid looking and not pay attention to, like what do you need to look at that it's going to really help you call in your man? How do you need to nurture yourself more, love yourself more? Because that's the gap. And you really got to, bridge that gap that is going to help you call in your man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really beautifully said, Nicole. And I love that concept that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And it's a beginning point too, to just explore your life from. I really appreciate the ideas that you've shared to help inspire women about what is possible. And even if you are not in that place where you're seeing a lot of possibility, some of the things that Nicole has suggested today could be starting points for you to begin to explore that and to begin to start feeling your way forward if you've been feeling a little bit stuck. And I want to thank you, Nicole, for being here with us. It's been a delight and a joy to have you.
Thank you.
And I want to also thank each of you for being here with us, because you are to be complimented on your presence here today. The fact that you are here shows that you care about having your very best and highest life, and that you're dedicated to your own self-growth and development. And I consider it an honor that you've spent this time with us. So thank you for being here. And Nicole, before we wrap up today, I just want to give you a chance to leave us with just a last little parting thought, if you would.
I really want to leave the audience with this message. You are here on this planet to experience true satisfaction and pleasure, right? And all that is required from you to really get to that point is to allow yourself to receive, because you know that you matter, your happiness matters, and that you are worthy. If you can just tap into that energy, right? That's just not a thought. Just feel it in your body, and you walk through life that way, you will see your life transform. That's my message.
Oh, thank you so much, Nicole. That's a lovely way to end this inspiring conversation. So again, I want to thank you and thank each of our participants for being here with us. Bye-bye for now.